I stood in my empty Martha's Vineyard estate, holding the last Christmas card my mother ever sent me before she died. Family is everything, my dear Caspian. But as I read my daughter's 7-word text that December morning, I realized that sometimes the family we die for wouldn't even miss us at our funeral. This is the story of how I learned that blood doesn't always mean love, and sometimes the hardest thing a parent can do is let go. The Waterford Crystal Angel, the last gift my mother gave me before the cancer took her, slipped from my trembling fingers, exploding into 1,000 glittering shards across the Italian marble of my Edgartown estate. The delicate crash barely registered. My eyes remained locked on my phone screen, reading those 7 words over and over, each time feeling my mother's presence slip further away. Spending Christmas with Pemberton's family this year. 7 words. That's all my daughter Thessaly needed to erase 35 years of sacrifice, love, and the family traditions my mother had cherished. I'm Caspian Winerose, 65 years old, standing in the kitchen of my newly purchased waterfront estate on Martha's Vineyard. 12,000 square feet of New England perfection, overlooking Edgartown Harbor, and not a single family member to share it with on the one holiday my mother made sacred. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I set down the phone. The morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows illuminated the harbor where sailboats bobbed peacefully, a sight my mother would have loved but would never see from this house I'd bought to honor her memory. Thessaly's medical school tuition at Johns Hopkins, $450,000 before she switched to art therapy, then interior design, then dropped out entirely to find her authentic self. I'd paid every bill without question, remembering my mother's words. Education is the only inheritance that matters, Caspian. The wedding to Pemberton Ashmont 3 years ago. $175,000 for a vineyard wedding that could have graced the pages of Town and Country. His family contributed their good name and a case of mediocre champagne. I still remembered Thessaly twirling in that Oscar de la Renta gown, whispering, "Grandma would be so proud, Daddy." My mother. She'd been gone 2 years now, but I'd bought this estate partly to feel closer to her. She'd always dreamed of summering on the vineyard, but never could afford it. The down payment for their Beacon Hill townhouse, $300,000, because Pemberton's art gallery needs the right address to succeed, Daddy. You understand. I understood. I always understood. I always paid. I always sacrificed, just like my mother had sacrificed for me. But understanding had reached its limit on this cold December morning, with my mother's Christmas ornaments still packed in boxes, waiting to decorate a tree for a family gathering that would never happen. I picked up my phone again, staring at Thessaly's contact photo, taken at my mother's funeral where she'd promised to carry on all of Grandma's traditions. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard, writing and deleting a dozen responses. Rage, heartbreak, disappointment, no words could capture the betrayal of abandoning not just me, but my mother's memory. Finally, I typed, "I understand. Enjoy your holiday." 3 words that revealed nothing of my devastation. The house fell silent except for the distant cry of seagulls and the harbor bell's mournful toll. This estate, purchased just 2 months ago for $5.2 million, was supposed to be our family's new beginning. The 18-foot Norway spruce in the great room, the catering from the Port Hunter, the antique ornaments from my mother's collection, all of it suddenly meaningless. I walked to the Widow's Walk, climbing the narrow stairs to the rooftop platform that offered 360-degree views of the island. The Atlantic stretched endlessly before me, and somewhere across the water in Boston, Thessaly was probably helping her mother-in-law prepare their sophisticated Christmas, laughing at Pemberton's father's Harvard stories, playing the perfect daughter-in-law while her actual father stood alone in a monument to broken promises. The cruelest part, she hadn't even asked if I'd be alone, hadn't wondered what I'd do with my mother's ornaments, hadn't considered that at 65, after my cardiac incident last spring, this might be one of our last chances to honor the woman who made us both who we were. My phone buzzed. Not Thessaly. My brother Flint. "Caspian, you okay? Minerva and I were wondering about tomorrow's plans." Tomorrow. Christmas. The first one in this house, the first one where I'd planned to honor Mom properly, now empty as the chair she used to sit in. But as I stood there, something cold and clear crystallized in my chest. If Thessaly wanted to abandon our family traditions, perhaps it was time I created new ones with people who actually valued them. I had phone calls to make. Flint arrived within 90 minutes, taking the ferry from Woods Hole, his weathered pickup truck looking beautifully out of place among the Range Rovers and Mercedes of Edgartown. Behind him, Minerva carried a basket of her famous cranberry scones and the kind of fierce protective energy that only comes from decades of witnessing family dysfunction. "Show me the text," Flint said without preamble. His carpenter's hands, hands that had restored half the historic homes on the Cape, clenched into fists. I handed him my phone. His jaw tightened. The same tell he'd had since we were boys growing up in Worcester, before either of us could have imagined owning property on the vineyard. "That ungrateful little—" Minerva placed a warning hand on his arm. "Flint." "No, Min. I'm done watching this happen." He turned to me, eyes blazing with protective fury. 35 years, Cass. 35 years of watching her bleed you dry while giving nothing back. When's the last time she called just to check on you?" I couldn't answer because I couldn't remember. "Exactly." Flint pulled out his phone. "You know what? We're having Christmas here. Your house, your rules, your guest list. I'm calling the Carraways." "Flint, I don't want to make this about revenge." "It's not revenge." Minerva's usually gentle voice carried steel. "It's self-preservation, and it's what your mother would have wanted, you surrounded by people who actually love you." My mother. She would have been heartbroken to see Thessaly choose strangers over family traditions. Within 2 hours, my empty estate began filling with voices I hadn't heard in too long. Atticus and Delphine Carraway, my former business partners who'd helped me build the pharmaceutical consulting firm that made me wealthy. Sterling and Isadora Wyndham, who'd stood by me through my divorce 15 years ago when Thessaly's mother decided she needed to explore her spiritual path in Sedona with her life coach. Serafina Blackthorne arrived last, her arms full of homemade butter cookies and her phone already documenting everything. "This place is absolutely magnificent, Caspian. And that view!" She moved to the wall of windows overlooking the harbor. "Is it true you have your own private beach?" "With a deep-water dock," I said, finding myself smiling for the first time all day. "Though I bought it hoping to teach future grandchildren to sail." The room fell silent. Everyone knew Thessaly and Pemberton had been trying for 2 years. Another medical expense I'd covered without question, including multiple IVF cycles at Boston's best fertility clinic. "Well," Atticus said, raising the glass of scotch he'd poured for my bar, "their loss. This place deserves to be filled with people who actually appreciate its owner." Delphine nodded, her artist's eye taking in details. "Caspian, would you mind if I took some photos? This restoration is incredible, and the way the afternoon light hits those original windows." "Please, document everything." The words came out harder than intended. "Let the world see what Christmas looks like when you're actually wanted." Flint caught my eye, understanding immediately. Thessaly was obsessed with social media, particularly Instagram, where she portrayed herself as a New England lifestyle influencer. She'd see these photos. She'd see everything she'd chosen to miss. CTA. Sometimes the hardest battles are with the people we love most. If this story resonates with your own family struggles, please like and share. You're not alone. We're building a community of people who understand that love shouldn't come with a price tag attached. As the afternoon progressed, my estate transformed. Isadora arranged winter branches and holly she'd brought, turning my dining room into something from a Nancy Meyers film. Sterling set up speakers for jazz, filling the space with music that bounced off the coffered ceilings. Serafina and Delphine collaborated on table settings that would make the vineyard's most exclusive hostesses jealous. "You know," Atticus said, pulling me aside, "I never understood why you kept giving her money. The consulting firm alone nets you what, $4 million a year? More, I admitted, plus the biotech investments, the real estate portfolio. And she knows about none of this? She knows I'm comfortable. She doesn't know I'm wealthy. There's a significant difference. Whistling low, Atticus said. That's going to be an interesting conversation when she finds out. If she finds out, I thought, because watching my friends transform my estate into something magical, I realized I was done having conversations with someone who only called when she needed something. Flint appeared at my elbow. The Penworths have just confirmed, so did the Eldridges. Cass, we're going to have 30 people here tomorrow. 30 people who wanted to be here. 30 people who valued my company, not my checkbook. 30 people who would fill this estate with the kind of warmth money couldn't buy. Good, I said, and meant it. Outside, the December sun set over Edgartown Harbor, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. Somewhere in Boston's Beacon Hill, my daughter was sitting with her in-laws, probably complaining about something I hadn't bought her yet. She had no idea what storm was coming. Christmas Day arrived dressed in a rare vineyard snow. Delicate flakes that made Edgartown look like a scene from a snow globe. The doorbell rang at exactly 5 p.m. Through the beveled glass, I saw Flint and Minerva, arms full of dishes and wrapped presents. But it was what I saw in their eyes that stopped me cold. Pride. Raw, undisguised pride in what I was finally doing. "Merry Christmas, brother," Flint said, his voice thick with emotion. "Ready to show them what real family looks like?" Within an hour, my estate pulsed with life. The Carraways arrived with their famous lobster bisque. The Wyndhams brought wine from their private collection, bottles worth more than most people's mortgage payments. Serafina Blackthorne swept in with enough desserts to feed the entire island, her phone already capturing every moment. "Caspian, you have to see this," Delphine called from the great room. She'd been photographing the party, and her camera screen showed something magical. Genuine smiles, real laughter, people who wanted nothing from me except my company. The dining room table, set for 30, gleamed under the baccarat chandelier's light. Each place setting was perfection, each dish prepared with love, not obligation. This was what I dreamed of when I bought this estate, except I'd pictured different faces at the table. Before we eat, I stood, raising my glass. I need to say something. The room quieted, 29 faces turning toward me with warmth I hadn't felt in years. You're here because you choose to be. Not because you need something, not because you feel obligated, but because we've built relationships based on mutual respect. That's worth more than... My phone exploded with notifications. Serafina had posted the photos to Instagram with the location tagged. The caption read, "Christmas magic at the Winrose Estate, Martha's Vineyard. Blessed to celebrate with chosen family who knows that love isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in showing up." Within minutes, the likes and comments poured in. Vineyard Society, Boston elites, everyone seeing what success looked like when shared with the right people. And then, the notification I'd been expecting. Thessaly Winrose Ashmont is typing. I turned off my phone. "Caspian?" Isadora noticed my expression. "Everything all right?" "Everything's perfect," I said, and meant it. "Let's eat." The meal unfolded like a symphony. Each course brought stories, laughter, memories of deals we'd closed, storms we'd weathered, moments that had nothing to do with transactions and everything to do with connection. Sterling stood for a toast. To Caspian Winrose, who taught us that wealth isn't about what you accumulate, but about who you choose to share it with. As glasses clinked, my phone buzzed insistently on the sideboard where I had left it. I knew without looking it was Thessaly. The photos would have reached her by now. She'd see the estate she never knew I owned, the friends she never knew I had, the life she'd never bothered to discover. "Ignore it," Flint said quietly beside me. "Whatever she wants can wait." But we both knew what she wanted. She wanted back in. She wanted explanations. She wanted control. She wasn't going to get any of it. Serafina approached with her phone. Caspian, the engagement on these posts is insane. Over 1,200 likes already. Everyone from Boston to the Vineyard is seeing this, including Thessaly's book club friends. Good, I thought, but didn't say. Let them see what happens when you choose your father's absence. The party continued past midnight, the kind of natural and joyful gathering that couldn't be forced or faked. As the last guest left, Flint helped me clean up, both of us working in comfortable silence. "She's called 31 times, he said finally, gesturing to my phone. "I know. She'll come here. I know that too." Flint studied me in the kitchen's soft light. "You're really done, aren't you?" For the first time in 35 years, I could answer honestly. Yes, I'm done being her personal ATM. I'm done being taken for granted. I'm done pretending that DNA means I have to accept disrespect. The doorbell rang at 1:47 a.m. We both knew who it was. The pounding started before I could reach the door, violent, desperate hammering that echoed through my sleeping estate like thunder over the harbor. "Father! Open this door right now! I know you're in there!" Thessaly's voice, shrill with rage, cut through the solid mahogany door. Through the security camera, I could see her and Pemberton on my doorstep, their faces twisted with fury in the porch light's glow. I took my time walking to the door, each step measured across the reclaimed wide plank floors. Flint stood behind me, solid as the vineyard's granite foundations. "Thessaly," I called through the door. "It's 2 a.m. The neighbors—" "I don't care about the neighbors!" The door shuddered under her fist. "How dare you throw a party without telling me? How dare you humiliate me like this?" Humiliate. There it was. Not hurt, not confused, humiliated. Because that's what this was really about. Her image, her control, her carefully curated Instagram life. I opened the door. She burst in like a nor'easter, Pemberton trailing behind her like driftwood in a storm. Her designer coat was askew, her perfectly styled hair wild, her face a mask of indignant rage I'd seen too many times before. "This house," she spun in a circle, taking in the soaring ceilings, the museum-quality art, the obvious old-money wealth. "This fucking mansion. How long have you been hiding this from me?" "I haven't been hiding anything. I bought it 2 months ago." 2 months? Her voice cracked. "You've owned this for 2 months and didn't tell your own daughter?" "When would I have told you? During one of your quarterly calls asking for money? Or perhaps during the text when you uninvited me from Christmas?" She had the audacity to look wounded. "That's not what that text meant, and you know it." Flint laughed, actually laughed. "Thessaly, we all saw the text. Spending Christmas with Pemberton's family this year. Pretty clear message. Uncle Flint, this doesn't concern you." "Like hell it doesn't." Flint stepped forward. "I've watched you drain your father for 35 years. It concerns everyone who actually gives a damn about him." Pemberton finally spoke, his voice weak. "Perhaps we should discuss this in the morning when everyone's calmer." "Shut up, Pemberton." She whirled on him, then back to me. "I want to know where this money came from. This house has to be worth millions, millions, money you've been hiding from me." "The money," I said slowly, each word deliberate, "came from 35 years of smart investments, from building a pharmaceutical consulting firm you never asked about, from biotech patents you never knew existed because you never asked about my life. Only my bank balance." She went white, then red. "You're saying you're rich, actually rich." "I'm saying I'm successful. There's a difference." "How much?" The question shot out like a bullet. "How much are you worth?" And there it was. Not, "Why didn't you tell me?" Not, "I'm proud of you." Just, "How much?" That's none of your business. The slap happened so fast I barely saw it coming. Her palm connected with my cheek with a crack that echoed through the foyer. Behind me, I heard Flint's sharp intake of breath. The silence that followed was deafening. "You just assaulted me," I said quietly, "in my own home." Thessaly's eyes widened as she realized what she'd done. Pemberton had gone pale, backing toward the door. "Dad, I didn't mean—" "Get out." "What?" "Get out of my house." Each word was carved from ice. "You're not serious. I'm your daughter. You're a stranger who happens to share my DNA. A stranger who just physically assaulted me because she found out I have money she can't access. This is insane." She looked around wildly, as if searching for support that wasn't there. "You're choosing them," she gestured toward where my friends had been, "over your own flesh and blood? I'm choosing people who value me over someone who only values my wallet. There's a difference, Thessaly, a difference you'll never understand." She pulled out her phone, fingers flying over the screen. "I'm calling the police. Elder abuse. You're clearly having some kind of breakdown." Flint pulled out his own phone, showing the security footage from my doorway camera. "Call them. I'm sure they'll be very interested in this video of you assaulting your father." The phone slipped from her fingers. "This isn't over," she whispered, but the threat had lost its teeth. "Yes," I said, opening the door wider. "It is." As they stumbled out into the vineyard night, Thessaly turned back one last time. "You'll regret this. When you're old and alone, you'll regret choosing money over family." I'm already old, but for the first time in 35 years, I'm not alone. I'm free. The door closed on her shocked face, the lock clicking with finality.
Dawn crept over the Atlantic like a hesitant visitor, painting my bedroom walls in shades of pearl and gold. I hadn't slept, couldn't sleep, my mind replaying the sound of that slap over and over. My cheek didn't hurt anymore, but something deeper did. The final, irreversible severing of whatever father-daughter bond had existed. My phone showed 73 missed calls from Thessaly, 31 from Pemberton, and one text from an unknown number that turned out to be Thessaly's mother-in-law. What kind of father abandons his daughter at Christmas? I deleted them all. Flint arrived at 7 a.m. with coffee and pastries from the Edgartown bakery, looking like he'd slept about as well as I had. "How you holding up?" He set the coffee in front of me, his eyes scanning my face. "I keep waiting for the guilt," I admitted. "It's not coming." "Good. It shouldn't." He pulled out his phone, showing me something that made my stomach drop. Thessaly had gone nuclear on social media. A long, rambling post about elder abuse, about a father's mental breakdown, about hidden assets and family betrayal. The comments were split, some supporting her, others who knew our history calling out her hypocrisy. But it was Serafina Blackthorn's response that stopped me cold. "Interesting how you're concerned about your father's wealth now, Thessaly. Where was this concern during the 15 years I watched him pay your bills while you never once visited him? I have receipts, darling, lots of them." Attached were screenshots, text messages Thessaly had sent to mutual friends over the years, bragging about how she had Daddy handled and how guilt money spends just as well as any other kind. "Jesus," I breathed. "It gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it." Atticus Carraway had posted his own response. For context, Caspian Winrose paid for his daughter's medical school, $450,000. Her wedding, $175,000, her house down payment, $300,000, and countless other expenses. In return, she couldn't be bothered to spend Christmas with him. That's the real story here. The numbers were public now. The extent of my giving and her taking laid bare for all of Martha's Vineyard and Boston to see. My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Winrose, this is Patricia Whitmore from the Boston Globe. We're interested in running a story about financial abuse of elderly parents by adult children. Your situation has come to our attention. I hung up. The doorbell rang, and my heart sank. Not again. Not another confrontation. But it wasn't Thessaly. It was Delphine Caraway, carrying a casserole dish and wearing a determined expression. "You're not spending today alone," she announced, pushing past me into the kitchen. "Atticus is parking the car. The Wyndhams are on their way. We're having a day after Christmas gathering whether you like it or not." "Delphine, you don't have to—" "Caspian." She set down the dish and took my hands. "For 20 years I've watched you give everything to someone who gave nothing back. Today you're going to learn what it feels like to receive." By noon, my estate was full again. Not with the formal dinner party atmosphere of Christmas, but with something warmer. Friends who'd shown up simply because they knew I needed them. Isadora Wyndham had brought her teenage daughters, who immediately fell in love with the estate's widow's walk and hidden servant passages. Stirving was teaching Flint's grandson about sailing knots. Normal, multi-generational gathering sounds filled spaces that had echoed with anger just hours before. "Mr. Winrose," Isadora's older daughter approached me shyly. "My mom told me what happened. With your daughter, I mean." I tensed, unsure where this was going. "I just wanted to say, my bio dad is like that. Only calls when he needs something. And my mom's dad, my grandpa Sterling, he chose to be my grandfather even though we're not blood related. Real family chooses you back, you know." This teenager understood something my 38-year-old daughter never had. "Thank you, Arya. That means more than you know." As the afternoon wore on, I found myself watching this chosen family with new eyes. The Caraway's grandson teaching Flint's daughter about tidal pools. Sterling and Atticus discussing a new investment opportunity, naturally including me in their plans. This was wealth that couldn't be measured in dollars. This was what I'd been missing while pouring everything into a relationship that only flowed one way. Around 4 p.m., Flint pulled me aside. "There's something else you should know. Thessaly went to Pemberton's parents' house in Cambridge, but they kicked her out." "What?" "Apparently, her mother saw the social media posts, saw what really happened. She told Thessaly that she raised her son better than to enable a gold digger." The word hit hard. Gold digger. Is that what my daughter had become? "Pemberton's filing for divorce," Flint continued. "His parents are backing him. They're disgusted by what they saw, not just the assault, but the years of manipulation they're only now understanding." I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. This was my daughter's life imploding, even if it was by her own hand. "She'll come back," Flint warned. "When she has nowhere else to go, she'll come back." I looked around my estate full of chosen family, at people who valued me without price tags attached, and made a decision that would have been impossible just 48 hours before. Let her come. The answer will still be no.
3 days after Christmas, the doorbell camera alerted my phone at 3 p.m. Thessaly stood on my doorstep, but this wasn't the furious woman who'd slapped me. This was someone broken, makeup-free, hair unwashed, wearing the same clothes from our last encounter. I watched her through the camera for a full minute before opening the door. "Please," she said before I could speak. "Just please let me in. I have nowhere else to go." Against every instinct screaming no, I stepped aside. She entered slowly, as if afraid the house might reject her. We sat in my library, overlooking the harbor, the silence between us holding 35 years of complicated history. She looked around the space with different eyes now, not calculating worth, but seeing what she'd lost. "Pemberton left me," she said finally. "His parents, they saw everything. The posts, the videos from your security camera. They're paying for his divorce lawyer." I said nothing. "I've been staying at a motel, the Motel 6 in Hyannis. Funny how fast you fall when nobody's catching you." "What do you want, Thessaly?" She flinched at my tone, formal, distant, the way you'd address a stranger. "I want to understand. When did I become this person? When did I become someone who only called her father for money?" "The first time was your sophomore year at Hopkins. You needed $1,200 for books. You promised to pay me back. You never did. And I never asked. That's when you learned I was an unlimited resource." Her face crumpled. "You remember the exact moment?" "I remember every moment, every call, every request, every time you chose your mother's family, or Pemberton's family, or anyone except me. I have 35 years of moments, Thessaly." "I didn't realize." "Yes, you did." My voice stayed level, though my heart was breaking. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You just didn't think there would ever be consequences." She pulled out her phone, showing me her bank balance, $127.83. "This is all I have left. The joint accounts are frozen. Pemberton took his name off the credit cards. I can't even afford the motel after tonight." The old me would have reached for my wallet, would have solved her problem, enabled another cycle. The new me stayed still. "What about all the money I gave you over the years? The savings you should have from not paying rent, not buying your own car, not covering your own medical bills?" "Gone." The word came out as a whisper. "Trips, clothes, dinners out. I lived like I'd always have access to your wallet." "And now you don't." She looked up sharply. "Are you really going to let me be homeless? Your own daughter?" "I'm going to let you experience consequences. There's a difference." "This is cruel." "No, Thessaly. Cruel is taking advantage of someone's love for 35 years. Cruel is only seeing your father as a bank account. Cruel is slapping him when you find out he has money you can't access." She winced at the reminder of the slap. "I'm sorry about that. I lost control." "You showed your true nature. When you thought I'd been hiding wealth from you, your first instinct was violence. That tells me everything I need to know about who you've become." She started crying then, ugly sobs that would have moved me days ago. Now I watched with clinical detachment, seeing the manipulation for what it was. "There's a women's shelter in Falmouth. They have job placement programs. The library has free computer access for job applications. Stop and Shop is hiring at $18 an hour." "Stop and Shop?" She looked horrified. "I have a partial medical degree." "Which you quit. You have no marketable skills, no work history, no references. Grocery stores are where you start when you've burned every bridge." She stood abruptly. "I can't believe you're doing this. Mom was right about you." "Your mother left me for her life coach after spending every penny of our savings. If you want to follow her path, that's your choice." I'll tell everyone what you're doing, how you're abandoning me. Flint entered from the study where he had been listening. Everyone already knows Thessaly. They've known for years. They're just amazed Caspian finally stood up for himself. She looked between us, realizing she was outnumbered, outmaneuvered, out of options. "This isn't over," she said, heading for the door. "Actually, it is. The moment you decided I was worth less than Pemberton's family's Christmas dinner, it was over. You just didn't know it yet." She paused at the door. "What if I change? What if I get a job, get therapy, become better?" For the first time since she'd arrived, I felt a flicker of hope. "Then you'll be better. But you'll do it for yourself, not for access to my money. And maybe, someday, we can have a relationship based on something other than transactions." Someday? Not today, not tomorrow. Maybe not for years. But someday, if you do the work, possibly. She left without another word, the door closing softly this time. No violence, no threats, just the quiet end of one chapter and the uncertain beginning of another. Flint sat beside me as we watched her car disappear down North Water Street. "You did the right thing," he said. "But why does it hurt so much?" "Because you're human. Because despite everything, you love her. You just love yourself more now, and that's not a bad thing." Outside, the winter wind whipped across the harbor, sending sailboats rocking at their moorings. A new beginning, perhaps, for both of us.
6 weeks later. The text came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing investment portfolios in my study overlooking the harbor. "Dad, I got the job. Cashier at Market Basket in New Bedford. First shift starts tomorrow. Just thought you should know. T." No request for money, no manipulation. Just information. I stared at the message for 5 minutes before responding. "Congratulations. That's a good first step." Flint thought I was crazy to respond at all. "She's playing the long game," he warned over lunch at the yacht club. "Getting a job doesn't erase 35 years. I know. I watched the boats bob in the harbor below. But people can change, Flint. We have to at least allow for the possibility. And if she hasn't changed, then I've lost nothing by acknowledging her employment." The weeks since Christmas had been revealing. The story had indeed made the Boston Globe, not about elder abuse, but about adult children who exploit their parents. I declined to be interviewed, but Serafina had spoken eloquently about watching a good man be drained by an ungrateful child. The response had been overwhelming. Emails from parents across the country sharing similar stories. A support group had formed online, started by Delphine, for parents setting boundaries with adult children. We had over 5,000 members in the first month. But the biggest change was in me. I'd started therapy with Dr. Eleanor Hawthorne, recommended by Isadora, who didn't pull punches. She taught her that love meant giving money. She'd said in our third session, "Now you're teaching her that love means respect. It's a hard lesson, but necessary." 3 weeks into her Market Basket job, Thessaly texted again. "Saw a therapist today. Coverage through work. She says I have entitlement issues stemming from parentification of my needs. Working on it." I showed Flint the message. "Therapy speak for 'I'm a spoiled brat,'" he muttered. "It's still progress." Maybe. Spring arrived early on the vineyard, daffodils blooming throughout Edgartown. I found myself thinking about renewal, about what could grow when the old, dead things were cleared away. The Caraways hosted Easter at their estate in Chilmark. 30 people gathered, the same crew from Christmas plus a few additions. Area Wyndham had started calling me Grandpa Caspian, which hit different than I had expected. Chosen family choosing me back. "Any word from Thessaly?" Delphine asked quietly while we watched the children hunt for eggs among the beach roses. "She's been texting. Updates about work, therapy. No requests for money. That's something." "It's been 3 months, Delphine. 3 months is nothing against 35 years.
but it's still 3 months. That afternoon, while helping clear dishes, my phone rang. Tessely. I almost didn't answer, then curiosity won. "Dad?" Her voice was different, smaller. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me." "What is it, Tessely?" "Pemberton's been calling, wants to reconcile, says his parents were too harsh, that we can work things out." I stayed silent. "I said no," she continued. "Told him I needed to work on myself first, that I couldn't be in a relationship until I figured out who I was without someone else's money." "That's mature." "My therapist says I used you as a surrogate spouse, expected you to provide everything a partner should: security, stability, unlimited support. It wasn't fair to you or to Pemberton." "No, it was not. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I wanted you to know I'm starting to understand. The damage I did, the years I stole from us having a real relationship." After we hung up, I stood in the Carraway's kitchen staring at the phone. Isadora found me there. "You okay?" "She's changing. Or pretending to change. I can't tell which." "Does it matter? Either way, you're protected now. You know your worth. She can't manipulate someone who sees clearly." That night, I made a decision. I had my lawyer draft a letter to Tessely, not a reconciliation, but a framework. If she continued therapy for 1 year, maintained employment, and made no financial requests, we could try one coffee. Just coffee, nothing more. Flint thought I was setting myself up for disappointment. "She'll see it as weakness." Maybe. Or maybe she'll see it as what it is: a father who loves his daughter enough to demand she become someone worthy of that love. The response came 3 days later. 1 year. "I'll earn that coffee, Dad. I'll earn the right to be your daughter again." Time would tell if she meant it. Time would tell if change was possible. But for the first time in 35 years, I wasn't paying for the chance to find out.
1 year later, the doorbell rang at exactly 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Through the beveled glass, I saw a familiar silhouette, but everything else had changed. Thessaly stood on my doorstep, thinner but healthier looking, wearing a modest coat from Target, holding a small wrapped package. "Hi, Dad," she said when I opened the door. No demands, no assumptions, just a greeting. "Hello, Thessaly. Come in." She entered carefully, as if remembering the last time she'd stormed through this same door. Her eyes took in the Christmas decorations, the tree decorated with my mother's ornaments, the preparations for tomorrow's dinner. "The house looks beautiful," she said. "And Grandma's angels, you finally unpacked them." "It was time," I said simply. One coffee had turned into monthly meetings, always in public, always with boundaries, always ending when they should. She'd shown me her 1-year chip from therapy, her promotion to department supervisor at Market Basket, her small apartment in Fall River that she paid for herself. "I brought something," she said, offering the package. "It's not much, but I made it." Inside was a photo album, handmade, filled with pictures I'd never seen. Photos of us from her childhood, but with handwritten notes on each one. Not asking for money or favors, but sharing memories. "Remember when you taught me to fish off the dock? You never gave up on my science fair disaster. Thank you for being there for me." The last page stopped my heart. A recent photo of her at work, smiling genuinely, with words written below. "The day I learned to stand on my own feet. Thank you for loving me enough to let me fall." But it was what was tucked behind that photo that made my throat close. A picture of my mother, Thessaly, and me from 20 years ago, with new words written. "I'm sorry I forgot what Grandma taught us about family. I remember now." "Thessaly," my voice cracked. "I'm not asking to stay for dinner," she said quickly. "I know Uncle Flint and the others are coming. I know I'm not ready for that. I just wanted to give you this and to say thank you." "For what?" "For being the parent I needed, not the one I wanted. For showing me that love doesn't mean enabling. For giving me the gift of consequences. For helping me find Grandma's values again.
Flint appeared from the kitchen, stopping short when he saw Thessaly. She nodded to him respectfully. "Uncle Flint, Merry Christmas." He studied her for a long moment. Then something in his expression softened. "Merry Christmas, Thessaly. You look well." "I am well. For the first time in my life, I actually am." The doorbell rang again. The Carraways arriving. Thessaly moved toward the door. "I should go. Thank you for the few minutes." "Wait," I heard myself say. Would you like to stay for coffee? Just coffee while we finish setting up. And maybe help me properly arrange Grandma's ornaments. You always knew exactly where she liked them placed." She looked between Flint and me, tears threatening. "Really?" Flint nodded slowly. "Your grandmother would want those ornaments done right. Coffee would be okay." As we sat in my kitchen, the three of us drinking coffee while friends arrived and filled my estate with warmth, Thessaly carefully unwrapped each of my mother's ornaments, sharing the story behind each one. Stories I'd forgotten. Stories my mother had told her that she'd never told me. "I've been saving," she said quietly as she hung a delicate glass angel. 20% of every paycheck. My therapist says financial independence is part of breaking codependent patterns." "That's good, Thessaly." "I've also been volunteering at the New Bedford Women's Center, helping other women who've lost everything learn to build again." She looked at me directly. I tell them my story, how I lost my father because I only saw him as a wallet, how I forgot my grandma's values. Some of them recognized themselves. Delphine Carraway entered the kitchen, stopping when she saw Thessaly. "Hello, Mrs. Carraway," she said quietly. Delphine looked at me, then at Thessaly, and at the ornaments being carefully arranged. "Are those Eleanor's angels?" "Yes," I said. "Thessaly's helping me place them properly." "Your grandmother had exquisite taste," Delphine said carefully. "She'd be pleased to see them displayed." "She'd be disappointed in who I became," Thessaly said quietly. "But I hope she'd be proud of who I'm becoming." "Becoming counts," Delphine said simply, then busied herself with appetizer plates. As the evening progressed, Thessaly helped set up, sharing stories about my mother that made everyone laugh and cry. Then she prepared to leave before dinner. At the door she turned back. "Dad, same time next month for coffee?" "Same time next month." "And maybe next Christmas, if I keep doing the work, maybe I could stay for dinner? I want to be someone Grandma would have been proud to have at her table." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. The entitled woman who had slapped me was gone. In her place stood someone humbled, working, trying. Not perfect, but trying. Someone my mother might recognize again. "Let's see where we are next year. One day at a time." She smiled. A real smile, without agenda. One day at a time. That's what Grandma always said. As her car disappeared toward the ferry terminal, Flint joined me at the window. "Think she'll make it?" "I don't know. But for the first time, she's actually trying to make it on her own terms, not mine. And she's trying to honor Mom's memory, not just use it. And if she fails, then she fails. But she'll fail as an adult, taking responsibility, not a child demanding rescue." The estate filled with the sounds of Christmas, laughter, conversation, the clink of glasses. My chosen family, still here, still supportive, had witnessed a miracle of sorts. Not reconciliation, that would take years if it came at all, but possibility. I looked at my mother's ornaments, perfectly placed now, catching the light from the fire. She would have been heartbroken by what Thessaly became, but maybe, she'd be proud of what Thessaly was becoming. Looking around my home, filled with people who'd stood by me through the hardest decision of my life, I realized I hadn't lost a daughter that Christmas 2 years ago. I'd found myself. And in finding myself, I'd given my daughter the chance to find herself.
and maybe find her way back to the values my mother had tried to instill in us both. Whether she succeeded or failed was up to her now. But win or lose, I was finally free. Free to love without enabling, to care without sacrificing my dignity, to be a father without being a fool. The greatest gift I'd ever given my daughter was the gift she'd hated most, the gift of letting her grow up. The greatest gift I'd given myself was even simpler, the courage to demand respect from everyone in my life, especially those who claimed to love me most. As snow began to fall over Martha's vineyard, dusting the harbor in pristine white, I raised my glass to the friends who'd become family, to the brother who'd never wavered, to my mother's memory, and to the future that stretched ahead. Uncertain but honest, complex but real. This was Christmas as it should be, a celebration of those who choose to be present, not those who feel entitled to presence. And for the first time in 35 years, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.